The Means to an End by its_Kingston on AO3. Episode 3, Chapter 2. Uraraka scorned Toga and her ideas. Once the rogue put it into the world, it seemed as though it was bound to happen. Perhaps it was Toga at fault for the prince not returning the following day. Uraraka rose early that morning, despite not retiring for the night until the moon was at its peak. Swiftly she approached the dresser that stored her limited supply of clothing. Most were simple, at her request, but few were adorned with precious jewels around the neckline or embroidered with flowers at the hem. Uraraka dressed herself in a pastel green dress. 3 white buttons held the fabric to her chest together. The outfit, such as this, would usually indicate a necklace or pearls wrapped around her neck, the same color as the buttons, yet she lacked one. After a quick spin, for the sake of it, Uraraka decided on breakfast. She hungrily scouted the pantry for a meal, eventually coming to a slice of masculine. The bread was to be eaten quickly, so as to not mold on the shelf. Uraraka admitted she was putting the line a fair bit, having waited a fortnight to take it from the snack. Lucky lady must have been quite fond of her, for the bread was nothing more than a tad solid. No black dots poisoned the loaf. Once breakfast was swallowed down, Uraraka ventured to her shutters. She tossed them open, content to sit by the window and read until the prince returned to her tower. The sun rose higher, finally grading her enough to read, as she so intently did. The book of poetry she favored, since she was a small girl, was withdrawn from the shelf again. Dragging a chair across the floor, from the table to the window, Uraraka sat herself in it. She traced a finger gently across the faded leather cover. The bindings were torn, ready to retire. Paging through the collection, Uraraka settled upon a series of intertwining poems. All were about different people, but sharing the same beginning and end lines. She found the idea unique, a breath of fresh air in the book. She excelled, her mind wandering back to Toga instead of focusing on the words in front of her. The words seemed to taunt her with a kind of strange dance as she tried to shake the thoughts of the rogue from her head. She told Uraraka something similar, hadn't she? It'll do great to get fresh air, would it not? To finally walk the roads and see the world. The offer was tempting as the pond down to her at the tower base. When the wind blew and its surface ripped and curved, Uraraka could swear it was deep enough to catch her. When the rains began pouring and water leaked out of the pond, overflowing, she thought her chances better. It was alluring, much as the glint of mischief in Toga's eyes had been. Uraraka frowned, berated herself. There was no way to go thinking, especially not when her prince was riding through the forest now, intent on freeing her from the tower and taking her back to UA. He'd be here soon enough, and Uraraka would be free. She had no choice to make, least of all one that involved adventuring out with a rogue. The field was no place for her, no matter the stories she buried herself in as a child. Books filled with images and spiraled fields and open plains, a stretch of mountain range and the split of the earth for such a distance that even the double-page spread could not justify. Huge bodies of water collide with the horizon, touching the sky and dampening the clouds. Uraraka often dreamed that such a thing caused rain to fall upon her tower. Every time she leaned out the window during a storm, reaching for a single droplet of water, she hoped its origin was one of the great oceans. Perhaps, then, she'd fulfill her dream of travel. Uraraka shut her book with a gentle thug of the cover. She leaned back in her wooden chair and closed her eyes, content to let her mind wander. Her future would be different with Prince Midoriya. She'd be less cramped up in her tower, cursed to sit idly by as the world she wished to merely wander. Her list of obligations would reach higher than they currently did, a fact that worried Uraraka. Although she was a princess in name and by blood, her father had neglected the studies normally trusted upon a young lady. Instead, he turned to putting her away in a tower at the tender age of 6, before she could consider much of what she did. Because of this tragic fact, Uraraka knew little about the policies of the world or the mannerisms a grown woman her age should act by. The story she was given had every woman acting like clockwork. She supposed it was all that was required from her. She could make do with ease, be polite, political, easy to speak with, easy to look at. That was her job. More so as a princess than anything else. Uraraka imagined, her brain rebelling as Bakugou so often did when he stomped his boots and raved about whatever troubled him, conjuring up an image of Toga. The sly way she acted, as if she was privy to the secrets that fell upon no one's ears, was unknown to Uraraka. It was charming, just as her smile, and it left Uraraka wondering what the sickly figure Rogue had stolen from her. For there felt to be something missing in her life now, a longing for something she never truly had more than a taste of. When she opened her eyes, Uraraka realized several hours have passed. The sun was still up, though not for much longer, as indicated by the lessening blue of the sky. Sitting up warranted the crack of joints that slept tendered to bring about. Uraraka stood, retrieved her book of poems from the floor, and leaned out the window. Her feet stayed planted on the floor, enough so to grant her stability, as she drank in the soft breeze. The pond splashed at the hands of the wind, and the spruce branches swayed with its pressure. The old tower settled as the wind drifted through the cracks in its walls, creaking as though it would fall over. Uraraka wondered if she'd still be inside when that day came. To her knowledge, the prince had not arrived yet. If he had, his attempt at scaling the walls must have been nothing more than quiet failure. Uraraka supposed. She peered down at the dirt, attempting to gaze upon a fresh hoof print scampered across the soil. If they were new ones, her eyes simply didn't fall upon them. Uraraka holds some shallow level of offense at the prince's disappearance, was only kept from annoyance by the haunting words of the rogue. I hardly believe he'll come back to further make a fool of himself tomorrow. Even if he did, he'd meet a swift end. Uraraka grimaced, her teeth clenched together, hard enough to squeak against each other, pronouncing sound not unlike a child's first attempt at playing a vowel. She felt as though letting the idea reside in her mind would make it true enough to have actually occurred, and tossed it aside. The prince was right, and he would be here soon enough, Uraraka thought. If he wasn't, then she'll go about finding another way from this tower. Her father's idea be damned to hell. And if waiting during the day afforded her nothing, then perhaps Uraraka would make an offering to Lady Luck herself and sit by the open window that night. What did Uraraka expect? A rogue to be timely? To make good on an unspoken promise and return to her tower at nightfall? Blasphemy, really! She waited until her eyes grew heavy in the bricks that formed her prison, then stayed awake longer. Despite the ominous noise of the woodland, Uraraka thought any idea of lighting a candle this late. The wind was too strong by the opening shutters, the air too humid, and the night far too long. Anything to not waste a candle, especially when her supplies delivery was so spaced. No, she was much rather hold up her fresh candle for the night when the rain hammered her roof and the thunder shook through her bones. Nights like those were best spent reading, as sleep never came easy. With the way the wind ran through the trees, Uraraka suspected a night like that was merely around the bend. Leaves fluttering from the trees, tore down by the claws of the wind and tossed around like a predator playing with its food. Uraraka felt similarly. The next morning came with the grace of cave-in. Uraraka snapped up from her chair, ignoring the ache in her back and neck, upon hearing the telltale crack of a falling tree. The wind had died down, but Uraraka figured it had done its damage in the time it was allotted. She stretched the stiffness from her bones, cursed the chair, and decided to sleep in it. Cursed the rogue for not returning and leaving her to such a fate. She wondered when she'd become so comfortable with the idea of Toga's presence, but banished the thought to the same place those of the word's travels were being sealed to, tossed aside, thrown out, but never rejected or extinguished. A silent wish. She slipped her upper body through the window, head swirling around, to observe the damage of the windstorm. In her 13 years in the tower, there had been a great deal of storms, many of them going as far as to uproot trees and tear bushes from the dirt. Never once had a fallen tree close enough for Uraraka to climb down, and that streak remained. She couldn't even look upon the overturned tree, as it seemed to have fallen behind her tower. Lady Luck must have not been happy with Uraraka's offerings. That, or perhaps it was her mindset towards that insufferable woman that was causing a spell of bad luck. If the rogue was revealed to be a witch, tried and hung, came morning, Uraraka wouldn't have batted an eye. Though whether she'd mourn the loss was an entirely different question, one she had trouble answering. Before thoughts of mortality, morality, and witchcraft came breakfast, Uraraka decided. So, with no one as her witness, she settled on the pastry tart. The jam inside was dark purple, herberry spread, oozing out when Uraraka took the first bite. The dough was a hard outer layer, though softer where the jam had absorbed into it after sitting for so long. As she ate it, her mind drifted to the rebellious thoughts, to a more outlandish ones of the prince and his whereabouts, whether he was in the kingdom of Yue, the forest that circled Uraraka's tower, or a box beneath the layer of clay. The rogue was said to end the life of the prince, Midoriya, was she not? Uraraka wondered the type of person it took to do such a thing. She was simply born with the mentality to take life, or was that something she'd earned? Or rather, cursed by? Uraraka figured it's best not to have that answer. Okay, I'm gonna end it there. I am so excited. Okay, what happened to Izuku? Did he just simply not return? Figured that Uraraka was too much of a hassle? Considering by what Toga said, and if what Toga said is true, which I have reason to believe it is so, fuck you, Kingston! I'm speaking in the dialect of the 1940s. Not the 1940s, but you get what I mean. I'm gonna have to get out of that dialect soon. Okay, anyways. I'm gonna have a struggle. But, as I was saying, if what Toga said is true, then did Izuku just simply think that he has enough suitors that he should not hassle with this one? Again, I'm speaking dialect of fuck! Okay. Did he think that, okay, there's a lot of people that are offering up princesses to him to wed, to marry, right? So did he think, well, Uraraka is not worth the hassle. Like, it's not worth doing all that when he can't simply do it, so it's best to just pick out of the freaking list he has? Speaking if what Toga said was true, which I have reason to believe that what Toga said is true. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying not to speak in oldie dialect. I'm not an old maiden. Or, no, I wouldn't be a maiden. What do they call it? Lad. Old lad. Sorry, that's British. I'm not old, okay? I'm not ancient. I have no excuse. Anyways, but I wonder how this is gonna go. We're obviously at chapter 2. We have... I'm not even gonna say we have 5 chapters left, let's be honest. Those are probably gonna be divided into different spaces, right? Because this is 37 words long, and we're probably only like 5k words? 10k words? We're not even halfway, right? Because I'm pretty sure chapter 3 is probably gonna be like 40 minutes long. Ooh, close. 35, but still. Because, like, we're already reaching the point where I'm having to split chapters in half. So, I wonder. Anyways, as I was saying, this is really interesting. I'm really intrigued by all of this, and I cannot wait to read more of this, Kingston. I really, really like this one. I could see why this one is your child, your precious child, and I agree. It's really good. Your writing style is amazing. I absolutely loved it. I'm really intrigued by this, and I cannot wait to see you do more good stuff like this, okay? And I get what you mean by the whole not being able to get out of the dialect. So whenever I'm writing for my kingdom and then I have to write for another fic, I have to take a break. Like, I have to take a break and I need to watch a modern show. Like, I don't know, 911 or The Rookie or I don't know, something like that that's modern, where they speak a lot of modern words, because otherwise Look, I get trapped with the oldie dialect, okay? I think you get what I mean, Kingston. But even when speaking to other people, I start saying the oldie dialect instead of the new dialect kind of situation. So, yeah. I'm super excited to see where this is going. I think Toga is gonna pay Uraraka a visit in the next episode. Hopefully, fingers crossed. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.